Alright, so I know I'm really late on this, but we have Trigger's full kit. We've had it for a while, honestly. And so today, I just want to give my full analysis and thoughts on Trigger's kit to see whether or not you should be pulling for her onto your account. Because she does seem like a pretty solid character, but we're going to have all the information here on what she does and just her overall value for you. So let's start out with her kit here. So Trigger is an electric stun character. And it is cool that we're getting another stun character as well. So, starting out with her basic attack, really just, you're not going to use this whatsoever for her. She has a very, pretty simple to understand, combo for her kit, and that basic attack is just not part of it. There's no real benefits of her standard basic attack. But she does have a heavy basic attack, which I think is super important. So, when you hold down the basic attack button, Trigger is going to enter the sniper stance state, and it's just going to continuously fire shots at the enemies. Whenever enemies attack her during this, once every 8 seconds, she will automatically dodge these attacks. And you can also adjust her position, so if you want to be in a better spot when you are done with the heavy basic attack, you can also do that. And every time you hit an enemy during the sniper stance, you get 25 Purge, which is Trigger's unique resource, which is super important to her kit. And there is a max of 100 Purge. And once you let go of the basic attack button, you're going to launch a finishing shot, and then Trigger's going to exit the sniper's stance. And at the same time, you're also going to activate a quick assist to go back to the previous character on the team. Which is a bit unique because instead of going to the next character, you're going back to the previous one. So that is something to keep in mind when you're using Trigger. Now, the biggest part of Trigger's kit is that a lot of her stunning and just damage in general is going to come from her being off field. Once you have your maximum Purge and you swap out, there are 2 different basic attacks that she can use based on what you're doing with your main DPS or your third character. So her first off-field basic attack is her Harmonizing Shot. This will activate when another ally uses either their basic attack, their dodge counter, special attack, dash attack, or quick assist. When Harmonizing Shot activates, it's going to fire 2 shots at the targeted enemy, and these shots are aftershock damage as well. It's going to consume 3 Purge to use Harmonizing Shot, and it can trigger once every 3 seconds. Then the other type of off-field basic attack, which is just a stronger version, is the Harmonizing Shot Tartarus. So this one will activate with some of the stronger attacks. It'll activate when another ally uses their EX special, their assist follow-up, or an ultimate. So when the Tartarus shot activates, it's going to fire 3 shots and a finishing shot at the targeted enemy. This one is also aftershock. It'll consume 5 Purge to use this, and it can activate twice within 20 seconds. So you can get some pretty solid damage here, and you do get a good amount of these shots in before you have to actually go back and reaccumulate your Purge. So while these are pretty solid by themselves, they do get better as we get into another one of her core mechanics that we'll talk about in just a second here. Moving on to her special attack, really you're not going to use her regular special. There's no mechanics behind it. Very similar to her regular basic attack. It's just not worth it. It doesn't do you any good to use it. But now for Trigger's EX special, this one will also activate a quick assist to the previous character on the team. And upon using her EX special, Trigger is going to enter the coordinated support state. During coordinated support, when any ally hits an enemy with any attack, not just the specific types that we mentioned before, Harmonizing Shot, the first level of the off-field basic attack, will trigger, and it's not going to consume any Purge. There's also no cooldown restriction while coordinated support is active, and the Harmonizing Shot can activate up to 4 times and can last for 8 seconds. But if you're able to repeatedly activate the coordinated support as well, it is actually going to extend the duration from 8 seconds to 20 seconds, and is also going to increase the maximum number of harmonizing shots available during the state from 4 to 10. So being able to activate this repeatedly is going to be a pretty nice buff overall. And I know you might be wondering, how do you activate this, consistently, because it's from her EX special? Well, you're going to want to pair it up with her ultimate as well. So her ultimate has a pretty similar effect as the EX special, where it's going to trigger a quick assist to the previous character. And after using the ultimate, you're also going to go into coordinated support, but it is going to be a bit of a buffed version of coordinated support. So the initial duration is going to be 12 seconds as opposed to 8, and the amount of harmonizing shots available is going to be at 6 instead of 4 at the start. And if you use the ultimate first and then you use EX special afterwards, it's going to have that same increase by triggering it twice in a row. So you're going to get a 20-second duration and a maximum of 10 harmonizing shots, which gives Trigger a nice burst of damage because not only do you have to wait on those cooldowns, but also you are just getting way more uses of harmonizing shot from any attack being available to activate it. Then for her chain attack, it's just a basic chain attack. You'll use it when it comes up, but there's not really any effects tied to it. Now for Trigger's core passive, anytime any of her aftershock attacks will hit enemies, she's going to apply a 35% stun damage multiplier increase on those enemies for 5 seconds. And this can also activate even on enemies that are not stunned. And with how often you're going to be able to get her aftershock hits in, with the coordinated support and just the way that the aftershock attacks work in general from Trigger, this pretty much will have a 100% uptime, which is really good to do even more damage once you actually do get that stun in with her. Then for the last part of her main kit here is the additional ability. Her condition for activating this is either having another attack character on the team or having an electric attribute character on the team, which I would say is pretty solid for an additional ability. There are plenty of different options you can have for that. So when you have over 40% crit rate on Trigger with this additional ability, every 1% of crit rate further is going to give her a 1.5% days increase for her aftershock hits, which is the majority of the attack she's going to be doing. This increase will cap at 75% days, which means that in total, you'll need 90% total crit rate on Trigger. So a bit of a steep, crit rate requirement, but that is something that will definitely need to be built for, because the more days you're getting, the faster you're going to be able to get stuns and just get way more damage off. That's Trigger's main kit here, so let's go into her Mindscapes now for people who want to invest a bit more vertically for her. So starting with her M1, it's going to increase that stun damage multiplier increase from her core passive by an extra 20%, meaning that it's going to be a 55% stun damage multiplier increase, which is really good to deal some extra damage. Then this is also going to decrease the cooldown time for the base harmonizing shot from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. And this is also going to increase not only the amount of purge that Trigger gets for each shot that lands during the sniper stance state, but it's also going to increase the maximum purge amount from 100 to 125. And the increase for the amount of purge per shot still makes it so that even with the cap of 125, you still only need to hit 4 shots during sniper stance to have your maximum purge meter. And of course, more purge just means more uses of harmonizing shot and the Tartarus shot as well. Then for M2, Trigger's going to be able to gain 1 stack of Hunter's Gaze whenever dealing aftershock damage, and she'll gain 2 stacks of Hunter's Gaze when using the finishing move of Sniper Stance. And Hunter's Gaze is actually a pretty solid, team-wide buff here, where every stack you have is going to be able to give a 6% crit damage buff for all allies, and you can stack it up to 4 times, making it a 24% crit damage buff that, considering how often she's doing aftershock and also the fact that you don't have a time limit on these stacks, this is going to be up very early, and with permanent uptime, you're just going to have a 24% crit damage buff for your DPS. Then for M4, when Trigger enters or extends the duration of her coordinated support, the next harmonizing shot or Tartarus shot is going to activate the disconnect effect. When disconnect activates, it's going to deal additional damage and days based on Trigger's attack and her impact. And this also has a pretty high interrupt level, so it is going to be helpful in interrupting enemies as well. Then lastly, for her M6, she's going to gain 5 armor break rounds upon entering the field with a maximum of 5, and she also gains 1 armor break round per 25 purge that she consumes. So anytime she has armor break round during the sniper stance state, you're going to be able to consume 1 of these per hit to deal additional electric damage. This damage is based on 1200% of her attack, and you can also get a 50% damage increase as well on this damage, and the effect there can activate every 0.2 seconds, so you are able to get this pretty consistently. Then you'll just drain her purge meter to get all the armor break rounds back, and then you just, rinse and repeat for her, rotations there. So those are her Mindscapes. So now let's talk about her overall value here. I think Trigger's going to be one of, if not the best stun agent. I think she is pretty universal with the way her additional ability and just gameplay works. Since she does work with any attack agent, that already is very good. But I also think it's going to be important that if you want to run her to trigger her additional ability with a electric support like Rena, for example, then you could probably see some comps where you're running maybe like if there's a really good like solo anomaly character as well. That could also be something that'll work with Trigger here. And most of her gameplay is off-field, so she is going to work very well with on-field DPS characters. Now, while there is very obvious synergy because of the Aftershock stuff with Silver Anby, I think she still is going to be very good with pretty much any on-field, DPS attack characters. So characters like Evelyn, Ellen, Soldier 11, you should have some pretty good synergy there if you do want to run Trigger with them. So now, do I think people should pull for Trigger? Now, obviously, if you like Trigger, you can pull for her. She's going to be pretty solid overall, but I think that Trigger is going to give the most value to people who need a better stunner on their account or just want, a stronger stunner to improve more of their teams. So there are still some pretty solid other stun characters. Like we have Lighter, we have, Chingy is still doing solid. Even like some of the standard ones are also doing well. But I think Trigger is going to be extremely good with a lot of characters, especially because a lot of her work is done off field, so you don't have to take away time from your DPS characters. Now, I think that players who already have, several strong stunners, I think Trigger is going to be like good or probably even better than a good amount of them. But I feel like if you already have good stunners and your account isn't struggling to clear like endgame stuff like Shiyu, Deadly Assault, then pulling Trigger I wouldn't say is the most like necessary thing for you, despite her being an upgrade. And if you don't use many attack specialty DPSs, I think that Trigger is not going to be nearly as valuable if you're not running her with a attack DPS. While it could still work depending on the team comp, sure, but it is going to be just not as valuable for you to run Trigger on other comps. Like anomaly comps have tend to run with like 2 anomaly characters and a support, and that ends up being a lot better damage wise for them. And I feel like it's just not as worth it to run Trigger on those comps, but she can still do some solid stuff, especially with how much she's going to get those Aftershock hits in. So overall, I think Trigger is a pretty solid character, but I think depending on where your account is, she might not be necessary. And also for, if you're like me and you have a bunch of anomaly stuff, Vivian is probably looking a lot more valuable for you, but we'll talk about Vivian once we get the 1.7 live stream. But that's going to be it for me about Trigger. Let me know down in the comments what you all think and if you're going to be pulling for her. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that, everyone, I will see you all next time.